God designed us to be learners. However, much of our learning and discipleship today regarding the church, current affairs, and theology has been reduced to pithy sayings and viral tweets. Just Say It seeks to help Christians go deeper on church, theology, scripture, and current issues in our world. I'm Chase Davis.
And I'm Matt Patrick. And join us and other guests for a monthly conversation on the topics that are impacting Christians in the church here in Colorado. You can expect candid conversations on the topics ranging from church attendance during ski season to Spurgeon's view of the atonement. Hey, welcome to another episode of Just Say It. Chase and I have a special guest today. We have Chris Jenkins with us from New Dominion Design Co. And so you might be wondering, why in the heck are they interviewing a guy from a design agency? Well, we're going to get into that here in a minute. We're going to be discussing what most of you know about already, which is our updated logo for our church. And we wanted to explain to our church why we did this. You might be wondering, this seems like an unnecessary thing with all that we have going on, but we wanted you to know more than just like, hey, here it is, check it out, but actually some of the reasoning behind it. So we're excited to have Chris here with us. So Chris, thanks for joining us, man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, Chase, do you want to get us started, man, with some kind of diving into this topic a little bit?
Yeah, and as we've talked about, we've been thinking about our logo for a while. The original logo came in 2011 at a coffee shop here in Boulder with our original team kind of drawing it out and that kind of thing. And as we move into the new building, we were like, this would be a great time to get something redesigned. I'd reached out to a few people and it just seemed like too big of a task. And then Chris reached out. So wanted to hear maybe for our church, Chris, maybe some more of your story, your company first, and then we'll get into kind of like the changes we made.
Yeah, so I've been doing design work professionally, or at least freelance, for the better part of 15 years. For the longest time, I've worked a 9-to-5 in some sort of graphic position in companies, and would do freelance kind of moonlighting for churches and various different ministries and organizations. And so I've been doing this a long time. I love designing for the church. It's probably one of my greatest passions. And so, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. And my most recent role was a creative director at an off-road audio company. And my time there had finished. And so I decided to start this up, New Dominion Design Co. And the whole goal of this effort of mine is A, yes, to provide for my family, but B, to kind of support guys like yourselves, other churches and ministries who are, for lack of a better word, at the tip of the spear as far as pushing the message of the kingdom, the art that kind of encompasses that message forward in culture. And, we've all bemoaned Christian art, and we've all, had our problems with whether it be music or visual or whatever. And part of my goal is to, I'm not the best in the world, but part of my goal is to elevate that a little bit. And there's so many ministries out there who are just going full-fledged, and whether they believe in the power of good graphics or good branding or good design or not, they're just forging forward regardless. And I want to come alongside those guys who are already just killing it, and maybe kind of come alongside with the visual side and help kind of, elevate it a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. So you reached out to us, reached out to me on Twitter. We follow each other on Twitter. I didn't know about your design work, and you reached out and offered to help us out on this. What were, you mentioned kind of like you want to partner with churches that are doing good work. And when you look at our old logo, I mean, I it is what it is, and it's on shirts and stickers and everything around
I'm
here.
literally wearing it on my hat right now.
Yeah.
That wasn't intentional, but here I am.
And so we always had a trouble with it, though. Design wise, it's heavy on the bottom, light on the top. Putting it on a square or a circle or anything was always a challenge. So that was part of the reason I was like, what would it be like to redesign it? But when you reached out to us, what were some things maybe you noticed that were like, it could use another take or an updated logo here at our church?
We all kind of designed logos 10 years ago plus with thin lines. So a lot of us were interested in like these very kind of delicate looking, real simplified, minimalistic designs, which were great. But I think all of us kind of realized they're not as versatile. They're not as, you can't kind of represent them on every application. Sometimes they get lost, or if it gets small, you can't. So I was looking at your logo, and for the sheer powerful force that the Well Church Boulder is, I didn't see the logo as complementing what you guys were doing necessarily anymore. And so from my standpoint, I just thought maybe these guys could use something a little bolder, something a little more, solid, to kind of represent where you guys are at now, theologically, ideologically, all things,
Yeah, so why don't you describe more why you hated our logo so much? And then, no, I'm joking. You were very kind. Yeah. I mean, is this something you're seeing like with a lot of churches? It's almost like I think it actually matches up when I think about how our church has kind of progressed and grown and matured in a way. We've become a church that where when we look at it, we're not really thinking about what's new and trendy anymore. We're trying to look at it from a more historic perspective.
Right.
And maybe that's just us getting older. And I'm thinking about my kids in my church, like when they're adults, and I'm not thinking about what, Nike's doing right now or whatever is out there in that world. I'm kind of thinking what's something that is truly timeless and lasts forever. And we're really trying to push that on all levels of our church. Was that a big part of what you were thinking through with us?
Huge. And just in general, as far as my maturation as a designer, that's kind of where I'm thinking. I think the hipster era was very influential, and I designed so many designs. I have so many, designs in my archive of me following the trends and the turn of the tides for this or that or the other thing, and which is fine, and it gets the job done for the time. But I think I'm right there with you guys that there's something else happening in the church right now, whether it be misguided and guys are going back to Catholicism or the Orthodox Church, or whether it be just guys like yourselves or my church too, where we're just kind of going back to the creeds, the confessions, and we're actually tapping into, what did they believe about this for thousands of years? I'm kind of done with a novel, trendy thing, which I know you guys know about with the whole Acts 29 stuff too. There's this move towards something substantial, something, mainline, not mainline churches, but something tapping into the source. And I think that for me, graphically, that's where I'm at in all of my work. But yes, for you guys too, especially, and factoring in what you guys are and what you guys are doing, it just made sense to kind of depend or lean on those kind of timeless lines and design aspects that aren't going to go out of style. The new logo that we kind of designed is more reminiscent of like an icon you'd find in some sort of Celtic kind of symbolism books or something Byzantine or something of these like long lost eras, but the design is timeless and lasts. And so that's where I think we kind of landed with this thing. And I think that it should serve you guys for a long time, because we didn't dip into all the trendy stuff. We just went shapes, lines, and
Yeah, I have to share this because as you were talking, I couldn't help but think when you said like how the hipster thing's kind of dying. I remember thinking that myself, and I don't know if you remember the episode of Portlandia with the put a bird on it episode. Like that was the design aesthetic. You just put a bird on it, and I was like, and it's all like that soft line. I remember watching that going, a lot of that kind of looks like my church logo.
Yeah.
And that was a few years ago. So
Yep.
sorry, I was thinking of that the whole time you were sharing.
Yep. And it's a good thing, you know. Trends
I'm going to try to
it's
do
fine.
something. I'm going to see if I can share the logo for those on YouTube. So let me pull this up real quick, because that way, as we talk about it, you can see a new thing on our logo. And part of the, you know, as we've matured as a church and some updates we've made at our church, they've been, you know, getting rid of our values, which were very much kind of trendy at the time.
Let me rephrase that for you. We did not get rid of values. We still, you know, have values as people.
We have values, yes. We changed to commitments as a church.
There you go.
And the old ones were like gospel-centered, missional, kind of these words that a lot of people were using in the church world. And we wanted to just kind of have more timeless ones, which are reflected in the logo. So why don't we talk about some of the inspiration for the logo? What were some inspiration you've got? Because when I looked at your portfolio originally, you're a very versatile graphic designer. I mean, you've done, did you say the most recent company was ATV Design, or what was the company you worked for?
Yeah, we did mostly audio for UTVs. But I handled everything from packaging to ads to logos to you name it. I've been doing stuff for a bunch of different industries for a long time. So yeah, there is a versatility for sure, and it kind of all just depends. And I think that's what I kind of bring to the table, especially working for Kingdom stuff, is just a wide array of different kind of styles. And I like to kind of meet with the client and figure out, you know, who they are and what they're about and what their message is and where they're going, and then try to implement whatever style, both that complements who they are, but also kind of takes them in the future. Yeah.
And it was great to work with you on that, because like we're talking with local sign companies for the church, and it can be hard for people that don't go to a church to understand. They have so many misconceptions about what a church is about or their values. And so the renderings they were giving us, we were like, who do you think we are? Like, this is like, this is not accurate at all to who we're trying to be. So I eventually had to boil it down. I was like, think doctor's office or lawyer. Like, we're looking for professional and clean, not, you know, vacation Bible school.
Right.
So
lots of bubble letters.
Yeah, lots of bubble letters. It's weird. But you were great to work with on this. So as far as like maybe artists or other things you've seen throughout church history, what were some inspirations you were trying to pull into this new logo for us?
Well, I think the Jerusalem cross, which actually was something that you guys kind of like added into the mix, definitely gives it a very historic kind of look. But I think for the most part, for me, it was trying to design something that could be an icon that can last forever. And which is, you know, when you look at the design, it's not like there is this intricate, detailed, crazy thing happening. It's all just line work and making sure the lines connect and making sure that they're balanced and making sure that they're symmetrical and pleasing to the eye. And it's all just kind of, you know, timeless design stuff that like I said, the further I go into this thing, the more I just rely on those simple shapes and designs, because that's where we as a people gravitate towards when we think of something timeless. So for me, it was just a matter of making sure the lines, the line weights, the shapes all had kind of meaning. I think with your guys' logo, I was more concerned with every aspect meaning something than I was, you know, having like something cool and trendy. I wanted everything to kind of like, everything was purposeful. So when you look at the lines and when you look at all the different shapes, it's all saying well, whether it's, you know, subliminally or in your face, it's speaking to that.
Yeah. So obviously with the cross, we've got the Jerusalem cross, or some people call it the potent cross.
Right.
This is a historic cross that was used throughout church history, particularly in the early church. And so I think that was a later addition because our elders saw the original logo and we're like, we'd love to see some kind of cross on there. It's funny, Chris, actually, I sent the logo to my dad. And he was like, I want red on it for the blood of Jesus. And I was like, appreciate that, Dad.
Yeah.
He actually printed it out and drew on it.
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. But talk to me
I think
about,
we wanted it symmetric too, the cross, right? Like that was another reason for that style, if I remember correctly, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I think, you guys being in Colorado, there is a lot of kind of medicinal marijuana type logos that have been done in the past with these kind of, even-sided crosses. And it did kind of, if you thought about it, it did kind of lend itself to like a medical look almost, And so I do like that we are able to not elongate, which is that classic cross, elongate the bottom, but kind of still dip into church history and get one of those crosses that's still symmetrical on all sides, but a little bit more Christian than medical,
Yeah.
Which is good because people have reached out to us. We've gotten calls before from people thinking we're a medical marijuana dispensary called The Well.
Yeah.
So it's great that anything we can do to distance ourselves from that is great.
No, totally. Yes.
Let's talk about the cross a little bit. So when I'm looking at it, you've got the cross, but then the kind of edges of the cross, each one has a bar on it. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering in how you designed it is, did you put in like blocks on each of the 4 points of the cross, and then the well just kind of makes it curved like that? How does that work?
If I'm understanding you correctly, the what governs the shape really is the ripples in the quote unquote water. The water and the edge of the well are non-negotiables for this design. For me, I think those illustrate the well, and so when you're looking at it, and like I said, another part of this whole process is the lines all need to relate to each other, connect with each other, balance and everything. So for me, the only natural way to add that cross in there with those, which traditionally it's straight edges on all sides. And so it's not normally curved inwardly like that on the edges, but in order for it to kind of fit and suit the well and the ripples and to work with the whole design, it needed to kind of follow that same curvature. So for me, it kept the integrity of the cross, but it still nestles it nicely right in the middle of those water ripples,
Yeah, and one thing I think we're going to highlight at our church is it kind of pulls in some, and I don't know if it'd be good to ask you, but it looks like almost mosaic, which is also kind of historically Christian. A lot of art was, and that's one of our commitments is being historically Christian, kind of like a mosaic. Was that intentional also, or did that just happen because of the design with the ripples?
I think when we initially had our design brief, we talked a little bit about stained glass. And for me, stained glass is such an aesthetic that you can mess up or fail at really easily. And one of the ways that I think people that try to do stained glass style aesthetic, where they miss it, is that all of those, it's glass. And so all of those pieces of glass need to be kind of nestled in. They can't just have big pieces of glass. They can't have, all of these little edges, I don't even know what they use in stained glass, but the middle part, whatever it is. All of that, it needs to be all connected like a web almost, you know what I mean? And so if you break any of that, or if you put too much space, it automatically, you don't believe it's stained glass anymore. So stained glass kind of governs the way that I connected all those lines and made sure that every little piece kind of fit within that aesthetic and wasn't too big, wasn't too small, and that there was enough room for the lines and all of those things. And so I think stained glass is where that aspect of the design kind of was informed from. I think it looks like a stained glass piece. If you guys were to make a window in your church with this in it, I would totally understand. Like, it looks like that, you know?
It does. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, just because it's interesting when we have sought people to do logo work for us when we were first making it. It was a lot of the designs we got from people was, I would say, hyper realistic in the sense of a well.
Yeah.
Like that's what everybody wanted to do. And you surprised me. I had never thought of going with, as you did here, with a kind of a view looking down on it, right?
Right.
Why don't you talk about a little bit why you went that way? And
I think all of us, when we look at those pictures of wells, hate him. We all hate them. They're cheesy. I mean, somebody can do it right and do it well, and I'm sure if you sat long enough with it and the design, and you could make something look pretty cool. But for me, it was the circle was much more. It lent itself to a logo much more than the side profile of a well, which we're all so used to seeing. And I like the idea of it being. I think logos are fun to look at and interesting to look at when they can achieve the purpose, which is to sell the brand or communicate the idea, but also when there's little Easter eggs and when there's little discoveries within the logo. I think that just makes for an interesting, experience when somebody's looking at it. So hopefully what people will do will look at the logo, and, if they're looking at it for any amount of time whatsoever, they'll start to see, oh, that's a stonework on the outside. Oh, I get it. And then they'll say, oh, that must be water then on the, so they'll start discovering these things as they look at it. And to me, that's a lot more interesting of a logo than just kind of an in your face, like, here's a well. Look.
I agree. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for not giving it. I was like, man, because Chase is like, I didn't know you. And Chase is like, yeah, this guy's going to be great. And I was like, I guess we'll see. And, and he came back. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, in the end, and, there's so much to it too, that goes into rebranding someone like yourselves. Because so much of what you guys had already worked out was strong. Your colors, some of your font choices, and the way that you presented photos, and whoever did your logo did a good job as far as branding, full branding package. And so a lot of those design choices, not necessarily the line weights and the symbolism or design itself, but the color usage and the typography and different things, that's all kind of trying to rebrand and not, start fresh. And so a lot of that kind of goes into it too. And I loved your guys' colors. I think all of those were perfect for what we were doing. So we kept all of them. Which I'm proud of too. I love to be able to kind of bridge that, and it's not like I'm just like, everything you had before sucked and now we're doing something, new, but it's kind of like taking what was and kind of like bringing it into where we're at now. So yeah,
for sure. If you were to, part of the maturation at our church has been when we planted, I sensed that a lot of the network we were part of and kind of the church culture we were in was kind of about being cool or hip or hipster or whatever it may be. And there can be a temptation to just, like you said, toss that out. I don't care about graphic design. I don't care about branding, all that kind of stuff. And you'll still get that in some churches. And they just don't place a high premium on excellence in graphics. And so maybe talk to those people in the audience who may go like, why does any of this matter? You're just trying to build a brand for yourself. It's like, no, it's not about that. So how would you articulate it to kind of maybe someone at your church or anyone else that kind of downplays the importance of branding?
Well, I think that we are not Gnostic. We are whole persons. And so everything matters. The way that something sounds in accompanying to the message that you're trying to convey, the way that something looks and the message that you're trying to convey, everything matters. And so when people try to separate it and hyper spiritualize things and remove the natural inclination of human beings to find things true, good, and beautiful, and they remove that from everything, and it's like only spiritual, that's just a incorrect way of looking at the world and who we are as created beings. We're meant to find things beautiful. We're meant to find things good. And so when we kind of abandon that, we're incomplete. And I'm not saying that everybody that has sucky church logos are theologically incorrect or anything, but there is this. It's okay. There is this deficiency in our thought when we think that things aren't to be made excellent. And so that's my whole life, has been trying to elevate, whether it's music or whether it's art, visual or whatever, that aspect of the church, I believe, needs to kind of rise to what I think is happening in the kingdom of God. And I think all of us are part of movement in the kingdom of God that is building, that is looking at things long term, that we're now thinking about institutions like we never have before. We're thinking about building, whether it be businesses or churches or whatever, like we never have before. And, Doug Wilson is famous for saying every reformation is a torrent of content. And we are in a reformation of sorts now. And with that comes a torrent of content. And that content should be excellent. The art should be excellent. The music should be excellent. The writing should be excellent. And so I believe in whatever way I can contribute to what we're doing. That's my role. That's my goal. And I think that it's necessary. And so it's good. It's good to be excellent. It's good to strive for excellence. We're not all going to be great, but we can definitely elevate what we bring to the table and do it better than we did before.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Matt, what would you have to add?
Yeah, I just think that's a little bit of a bridge of something that I would like to just do for our listeners as well. Is, it kind of gets into the why now kind of thing. And most people, because this podcast is for our church, know that we're hopefully within a couple of months roughly of moving into our new building. And so when we were doing this building and designing it, all that Chris just talked about was a big part of everything in there. It's simple, but we're trying to do everything as excellently as we can. We didn't want just like, it's not that it's wrong to meet in a black box for church on a Sunday and do everything with lighting and that kind of thing. That's just not what we're called to any longer. And so we wanted something that was more historic, timeless, all those kinds of things. So in the design of our building that we're going to move into, we wanted a logo that would actually come with that, in a sense, and just to be overly practical, if you're going to make signage and you're going to do all this stuff, if this is the time to change it, if you're going to change it. And so we wanted something that would actually match who we have become, something we're going to hang on to for a long time, and actually would fit much better in our building that we've spent all this time, money, and energy on. And so this is a great opportunity for our church to do this. Churches don't get this opportunity to kind of overhaul it visually as much as when they build a new building. Well, or for us, renovate a building.
Right. It's basically building a new building.
Yeah, basically. Would you add anything to that, Chase?
No, I mean, I just really appreciate the work he did, the thought he did. And even, having the cross in the center, as much as, we've talked about kind of moving away from that, the vibiness of the phrase gospel centered. Christ is at the center of all we do, and Christ is Lord. And keeping Christ at the center is crucial. And Matt and I, even when we're thinking about the building, it's like, where can we put the cross? Whereas a lot of churches back in the 90s in the seeker sensitive movement, their thing was, how can we remove the cross? How can we remove any sign of us being denominational? We're like, dude, how big can we build our steeple? I don't know if we told you this, Chris, but in Boulder, there's like a code that allows for steeples to be like unregulated in size.
That's amazing.
It's the only thing. I dove through all of the city code, and I found in there that the only thing the height restrictions do not apply to in Boulder is heights of steeples. And I was like, Chase, I found something.
Bro, please tell me you guys are going to do a church bell.
We want to. We've talked about that.
Please.
It's not in the scope at this time.
Okay.
We can barely afford a sign where we are right now. And so I think
speaking of that, if anybody wants to give at boulderwell.org/give, we need about $400,000 to finish this thing. So help us out.
But yeah, I mean, that was the original idea. It was like cross, steeple, just traditional, classic, church bells, all that kind of stuff. We wanted pews, but coating is just really, really heavily regulated around here. Even stained glass wouldn't meet the coating requirements unless you're historic. You've already had it and grandfathered in.
Wow.
But we've got artists at our church who are, trying to learn stained glass, trying to come up with some designs that we can like hang in the windows that would be kind of seamless and not replace the more energy code, windows that we've got. So we're going to be working on this for a while.
Chase, tell them a little bit about the pulpit too, because I think actually the logo and the pulpit, there's some interesting things that we have going on there.
Yeah, so we got the pulpit design probably too early. I mean, it was like a year and a half ago.
We thought we were going to be in by now.
Yeah, it's these guys out in Ogden who I think, Chris, you've worked with a little bit. Ben Garrett designed it and built it for us. And so it's got a cross in there, and it's simple. It's wood. It's much bigger than what we have used, which is a music stand. So it'll take some getting used to. But that way, when you're looking at it, there's a cross built into the pulpit itself. So we wanted enough. We didn't want the whole Martin Lloyd-Jones, or I don't know if Spurgeon had a big one, but kind of like you're almost on a ship, and you've got that kind of, that's fine. I guess, if we inherited a building with that, we'd probably preach out of it. Right. But we just wanted something simple, wooden, traditional. And, I think I got a pulpit Bible somewhere around the office that I bought, so we can have a Bible up there that everybody can use if they want. I'm sure Matt will have his own special Bible he wants to use, but
gold plated.
So yeah, most of the design stuff we're doing is definitely pushing into that kind of like, what is a traditional church? And that's why we took the entire roof off the church, rafters and everything, because it was a low ceiling, and we elevated it as much as we could within cost. And so, yeah, we're really excited to get in there. Anything else you want to add, Matt?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, Chris, this was great. Let's plug the name of your company again so that people can go to the website and check out your work.
Yeah, it's newdominiondesignco.com. And it's basically a portfolio site, but all my information is on there, and you can check out what I'm doing.
That's excellent. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. You guys are great.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to Just Say It today. Do check out Chris's work. If you need any design work done, you can go over to his website. He's not paying us or didn't give us a discount to promote it. We just love what he's doing and want other people to check his work out. And hopefully, if he ever ventures out this way to Colorado, we'll get to meet him in person, because we've only met him online. But if you listen to this and you enjoyed it, share it with a friend. Give it a great rating on iTunes or Spotify, wherever podcasts are found. And we'll see you next time here on Just Say It.